everyone, and welcome to another Scots Whay podcast. And today I am joined by Leyla Josephine. Hello, Leyla.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. And Leyla is poet, performer and storyteller. I'm particularly interested in that last one, but we'll come to that later on. We're here really to talk about Daddy Drag, the show that you did in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And you're bringing it to the Tron between the 26th and 29th of February. So tell us a bit about Daddy Drag.
So Daddy Drag was my second solo show that I made after my first Hopeless, and it's a drag show about my dad.
Right.
My dad passed away, and it's kind of working out all those kind of secrets that you're left with when somebody dies, all these things that are kind of revealed about them. And my mum narrates the show, and I'm in drag throughout the show, playing a kind of caricature of my father.
There's so much there to
I know, there's a lot to dissect.
Well, first of all, how did it feel the first time you did drag as your dad, if you know what I mean?
To be honest with you, I was very uncomfortable with it when I first did it. It was quite clear to me instantly how much I relied on my femininity. Even though I'm not particularly like a very girly person, as I pass very femme, I realised that when that was stripped back, I felt quite naked. And when I wanted to go for I was rehearsing it in National Theatre of Scotland, and when I wanted to go get some lunch, I would have to walk outside with a beard on, and actually that made me feel really uncomfortable, and I had to unpack what that was about. But then after a while it becomes so freeing, because when you shed yourself of these things that you've been relying on all the time, you're left with something quite pure. And actually women are taught quite a lot of the time not to be disgusting, not to take up space, not to be cheeky, and not to be kind of excessive in any way. And actually for me to borrow those things meant that I was finding a different power within myself. And there's a lot of shame for women that do those kind of things, I think. Not necessarily all women, but for me anyway. But that shame was kind of running parallel to the shame I had of my father doing those things. So kind of reclaiming that was me also reclaiming my shame that I had surrounding him. It all felt very that feeling when you're being creative and things kind of just run away with themselves.
Yes.
That's what it felt like. It was like I was conquering all these different things without even realising, which was quite cool.
So it kind of took you to places you had no idea that it would.
No, not at all. When I first made the show, I had development 2 years ago for 2 weeks, and I wrote the show, same sort of topic, but I was myself, and it was a poetry show. So, I read a lot of poetry. My first show, Hopeless, was a spoken word show, and then I decided that actually this show needed to be something completely different. So it went from being a spoken word show to a drag show very quickly, which was kind of crazy.
Because I haven't seen pictures of you in full drag. As you say, it's really, you've gone for the fantastic beard.
Yeah.
And the suit, and how did you build up the character? Was it pictorially based on your dad? I mean, did you want to look like it, or was it a case of, no, this is the idea of a masculine male in inverted commas, people might think? It
was definitely based on my dad in terms of big belly, quite I don't know, large gestures, all this kind of thing. My dad was 6'3", and towards the end of his life was huge. So it kind of, that was to embody that character, I needed some things. Annabelle Cooper, who is a drag artist who's part of Oasis. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they're two women that dress up in drag and do an Oasis kind of cover. They're brilliant. And she also won Man Up, which is a UK-wide mask drag competition. So she came in and she worked with me, and that was great because she was able to show me how to do the facial hair and how to walk and how to speak. And she was mentored by Diane Torr, who was a really famous drag facilitator in Scotland. So I felt like I was really getting passed on the baton of this thing that's becoming more and more done, but not that long ago was kind of unheard of in Scotland.
Well, that's right. I think when people still think about drag, it's the other way around. It's men become dragged into female characters.
Yeah.
And it is characters, and I mean that's the thing. It's as you say, this is a piece of theatre, and it's creating this character, which is why I'm really interested in doing it from a real person. You said your mum narrated it. How did she find the whole experience?
Yeah, so, you know, going on top of what you've just said there, it definitely was a character, because one of the things that my mum found difficult was like, oh no, your dad wouldn't be like that. Like, so it was quite hard to unpick the fact that you're making a persona out of someone, but also of yourself. So it's not really very accurate to my dad, but it's if I was a dad, who I would be. And actually one of the only things I have to go on is my dad, so you've got all these kind of layers. But I think for the people that knew him, it's quite hard for them to watch, because they're like, oh, but he wouldn't have been like that, he wouldn't have done that. But actually there has to be a point where me as a theatre maker has to go, well, this is the craft, and this is what I want the audience to digest, and this is what I want to put forward. So actually it has to become something else and something different, and actually moving away from whether it's my dad or a character of a dad gives me a little bit of space away from it as well, which was really important. But my mum, my mum found it difficult at the start. She was very hesitant, of course. It's quite hard to put, that's one thing being really hard as an artist that works with autobiographical material all the time, is you're constantly on this fine line of when you hold back and when you push forward, and you have nothing to go on other than your gut. So and you know, I'm used to that, whereas my mum and my family aren't used to that. So that was always, you know, that's always quite a difficult line to tread. But my mum came into rehearsals and she said she was fine with all of it, and that was a relief, because that was like a week before my first show in March. But yeah, she was really good, and I think a lot of people talk about how it's such an important part of the show, because she's so articulate about and so generous with this man that was a very difficult man, and and very had lots of flaws, and actually her generosity allows a little bit of forgiveness and understanding, and I think that we struggle to do that in a kind of cancel culture at the moment, when actually I don't think that particularly moves us forward often.
The idea that people are all bad or all good is just ridiculous, but that seems to be the way that people want to
totally
push things.
And I think the masculinity, you know, the understanding and forgiving men from a very different generation, it's very difficult, and I don't think you should necessarily always do it. But there was something about, for that show, I had to explore what that meant, and maybe I don't have the answer about whether it was good or bad or whatever. Maybe it's just about an offering, and the audience get to take that away with them in whatever way possible.
Because with the theme of the show, it's something that everyone will have their own version of. That's what I was thinking about when I was reading about it. You're thinking about the relationship with my dad and my mum, and particularly the conversations that often you have with your mum about your dad. Thinking, crikey, would I ever want these to be dramatised in kind of any way? But then that's what I was thinking about. This can't be an impersonation. I was thinking about Michael Sheen, the actor, who has done a lot of real life characters at Brian Clough, and him saying, I'm not doing an impersonation of these people, it's a character, and then you've got the script and all of that. So how did you approach writing the script in that way?
So the script, I mean, I don't even know if you could define it as a script. So Daddy is the character. I always refer to it as Daddy. You know, like if you have a drag name, you refer to his name, so it's Daddy. And he I didn't actually ever call my dad Daddy, just want to put that out there. But he kind of goes on these like little adventures with the audience. So he goes fishing, he has a barbecue, he goes to a wedding. So there are a lot of audience interaction, and actually there's not that much that is scripted. But he only talks in phrases. So he only says things like, "I'm only joking," or what else does he say? He says, I can't even remember. I'm just about to go to rehearsals, I can't remember any of it. He says fishing a lot. He says, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
So all these kind of phrases that you would add, I think most dads have.
Most dads have, exactly. But I definitely feel like, even though I feel like everyone can relate to the character or understand the story, I don't think necessarily everyone relates to it, because I've noticed that actually generationally, older people find it more triggering than younger people. And I wonder if my dad was quite an older dad, so he had me when he was 42. He was born in 48, so I wonder if it's almost like a generational thing of men that I'm talking about, and actually there's quite a lot of young dads now that people can't really see their own dad in that thing,
yes,
which was really interesting, because I always find that I'm scared that older people hate my work, but generally with this one they were like able to relate more than I think the younger people.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. You know, you have pals of mine who are dads and their kids are in their teens and 20s and stuff, and have the same records, all the same. There's not been that sense maybe of the generational split that there was previously.
And potentially it means that we're moving forward and men are more able to talk about their emotions and all these things that my dad wasn't able to do, so potentially we're moving on a little bit.
I think that's maybe where those stock phrases come in. Instead of having emotional conversations, it's little, you know,
jokes.
Little jokes. Jokes is a big thing, and are jokes quite a big thing?
Yeah, jokes are a lot of thing, and that was really, there's like a point in the show where the jokes become almost a little bit too, you don't know whether you're meant to be laughing at them or not.
Right.
So I always wanted to make my audience feel uncomfortable, and that's why some people hate the show, because it's very uncomfortable. And this show, more than anything I've ever done, has divided people, and I think it's because there is a real feeling of, you know, I don't like this character, I don't like this person, I don't like this space being provided for this person, and I don't want to laugh at this joke, whereas other people are howling at the joke. And it creates a weird feeling between the audience and me as a performer, when I can tell people are switching off, and I have to within myself be like, it's okay that they're switching off, it's okay that they don't like this person, because that's what I always wanted to do. But that is a hard thing to take on. Yeah, totally. And I think most of my work that I've ever done, like I do gigs all the time, spoken word gigs all the time, and I'm constantly making people like me, and that's what I do. And then, you know, like winning them over and figuring out how to like warm them up and like all this thing, and then to be in a room and be like, oh, I want them at this point to be really angry, I want them at this point to be really disgusted, I want them at this point to want to walk out. And you know, that and having that, and whatever their own stuff is with their relationship to men or dads or whatever, that also comes onto me as well, and that's quite heavy. I found the Fringe very difficult. Yeah, I found it very exposing. I felt after it that it was potentially not the right thing for the right place for the work to exist.
Oh, that's interesting. Because it was well critically received, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it was in parts, but I think I've definitely gone up a notch in terms of like when I did Hopeless, I did it off my own back, I did it in the space and the jury's in, and you know, all the people that were reviewing me were like small press and all this kind of stuff, and now I have moved up to something like at Summer Hall with the Autopsy Award and like all these things. There was a lot of pressure, and actually I found the reviews very difficult, because a lot of the reviews were mediocre. A lot of them were, I got my first 2-star, and I just feel like I'll never forget that, because I just felt like it was so exposing. Like I felt, and I think that's the real tricky thing about when you're making work, is that you have to find a way of just doing it whether people like it or not.
Absolutely.
And so I found it very hard, and I think it was very hard because, you know, my dad died, so, you know, I'm reliving this trauma every night, and it made me think, I felt like I grew up, because whereas before I always just want to do everything, I'll just push really hard, and when I was doing the Fringe I was like, oh, I actually can't do this like I used to. I'd not got the energy or the kind of power to do this for 22 nights.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to say. That amount of shows. Yeah. And you know, and it's completely on me, but I didn't even think about that side of it, that you're doing this show and it's such a personal thing. Yeah. So you're actually touching on the rawest of emotions almost every time.
I need to kill my dad off in every show. It's like brutal. But you just have to keep hold of the fact that like you are giving people space to feel something, and that has to be important.
Definitely.
But I think going forward, I need to, you know, the dates at the Tron are four dates, and I think that is like a good number. Yeah, and then I've got Alphabetti in Newcastle. I just don't want to do anything that makes me feel like I'm at capacity, because then I can't do my best show.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I suppose you need recovery time as well.
Yeah.
And if you're doing that for 20 odd shows.
Definitely. And I drink a lot of beer in the show as well. And I've recently just found out that I'm gluten intolerant. So during the Fringe, I was like drinking like 3 cans of Tennant tonight during the show. So I'm going to have to move on to cider. So not only was I traumatised, but I was also quite sick. So now I'm going to have to start drinking cider, which I'm a bit worried about, because I think it'll go even more straight to my head.
I think what you said about when you do performance in other areas where it's you, and you're thinking, well, I want the audience to like me, if that's part of it. I guess it probably is. I suppose with this, when you're putting on the costume, does that create a kind of barrier where you think, right, it's not me that they're judging if they're judging anyone, it's the character that I've created?
Yeah, I think in parts it does give you a separation, and also the costume is so good. So Yenny Loof, who is she's head of costume at the Tron. She designed it all, so she does all like Johnny My Night's pantos and everything. So she's very good at making these costumes quite like out there, and it definitely does feel like a performance more than anything else. And that does create this nice separation for sure.
Did you have anything in the costume that when you put it on you think, I'm now in...
Yeah, I have a fat suit. So that's when it happens, and the beard.
I just remember David Suchy saying he had the moustache. When the moustache went on for Poirot, that's when he knew he was in as far. He started, the accent came and all of that stuff as well. We'll go back to Edinburgh. How was that as an experience? Because we spoke to Kevin Gilday about his show, and we spoke to him before it started, and then I spoke to him socially afterwards about how kind of difficult you found it. What was your experience?
So this is my second year doing it. So I did it in 2017 at Hopeless, and then doing it again. And this year we had more support, like we had funding and we had, you know, a bigger team and all that kind of thing. So that was definitely easier. But I do think, and that's why the Autopsy Award is really good, because it supports a Scottish artist making groundbreaking work. Because I think it can feel quite satirised with people that are from elsewhere, and actually the Scottish voices tend to get lost, and you'll meet people that have not gone to see one Scottish artist the whole time that they're there. So I think things like Autopsy is really, and I think Summerhall are quite good at making sure that they've got quite a varied lineup. But I think the Fringe is quite amazing in terms of how you manage to get an audience and how you manage to be part of like a big buzz, and I think it's really amazing. But I can see why it is terrible for your mental health and why people really struggle. And I think the real gap happens when you base your self-worth on how good the art is doing, and I think it's very hard to avoid that when you're amongst so many things, reviews coming up all the time, social media, Facebook. I mean, it is crazy. So I think going into it, you need to make sure that you're really ready just to not be so hard on yourself, and just be like, whatever happens is meant to happen. And that's way harder to say than it is to practice.
Because the whole way that anything is reviewed now has changed so much. Like you said, you get 2 stars, and this idea that people just look at the number of stars and don't actually read anything about the show kind of happens, increasingly, or there's just one line out of a full review.
I know, or that you read lots of reviews that are just explaining the show. And you're like, but what did you feel? Like, what did you get out of it?
I was talking to someone who is in film, and increasingly that's the case where press releases get sent to reviewers, and then they say, that's just cut and paste from the press release, it's not a review at all. which is a worry, definitely.
But there is space of like, how do you improve?
Yeah.
Like how, like if reviews are important for you to be humble and improve and all those kind of things, but they are.
But they should be reviews. That you see, they shouldn't just be. Well, this happened and that happened, and you know, and at the end, 2 stars.
But it's also really hard as like an individual. Like it's not like I've got anyone else to. Nobody else is going to feel that with me. Like that is just that is just me. Like you're just hearing into me. Like it's not like I have like, you know, a cast, or it's not like I have like a director that's going to take all the blame. It's just like, oh, you are just hearing into me.
Everything that you're putting forward.
But then I don't think you shouldn't have them. No. So I think it's more up to like me as an artist to be able to like separate myself from them.
Yeah. For sure. So said at the beginning, poet, performer and storyteller, and increasingly I'm drawn to this idea of storyteller because we like to say that this writer is that, or this poet or performer, and they have to be put into boxes, but actually everyone's telling stories.
Yeah, totally.
So is that something that's important to you, this idea of...
Yeah, definitely. I studied drama at uni, so I came from a drama background, and I always worked with autobiographical material, so it's always been, you know, telling stories, but they're always, you know, usually about me or usually about people I know or my experiences. So yeah, like it is important, and I think that stories allow people to work out who they are in the world, even just by listening. You know, they get to, you know, find a sense of comfort in them, I think.
And I think we're almost all created by the stories that we've heard. Dads are a great version of telling stories. You think, not sure that's entirely true, but you know, there's a fictional aspect to them, and the people that often the folks say, well, you're a writer or a poet, say, well, I could never do that, or I wouldn't ever do that. But they'll still be telling stories when they go down the pub or when they're in the cafe. There's these kind of stories all around them, and I think that's often important for people to realise when they sit down or they read a book or they, you know, go and hear a performance poetry, is that that's what's happening. Yeah. You don't have to be excluded from that. You can tell your stories as well.
Definitely. And I think Glasgow is an amazing place for spoken word and poetry because it really doesn't have like litigation. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't have these like set rules about what poetry is and what it's not. And I think places like In Deep are great because they just encourage loads of people to use the open mic, and a lot of the time they are just telling funny stories, and actually how important that is, as well as any sort of like, you know, page poetry or anything like that. And you know, my family come from Ireland, and you know, my mum and my dad and my family, you know, they have set stories that they always go back to and tell, and you know, drinking in the pub is a performance because you know, you're always like waiting for the next person to tell the big story,
and they'll tell it in their own way in a whole performance. It is a performance.
Totally.
I will say, if you fancy going down to In Deep, get down early because they're always rammed.
Yeah, totally.
Performance, it is really popular.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I first started. So Sam asked me to come and do spoken word because I'd been writing some stuff, and I was like, oh, it's not poetry, I can't come down. She's like, come down, honestly, it's so chill, like, and that's where I started. And then I was doing that all the time, and so In Deep was always kind of fundamental. I think it's fundamental to a lot of people coming through, like me, Iona Lee, Jim Monaghan, Kat, Hepburn, Kevin, like we all came up through In Deep, you know, we were all there at the same time.
And these are people that, sometimes you get that in a city or a place where there's one thing and it kind of spawns other people going out and doing it, inspired by it. Yeah. When did you start?
2013, did my first performance 2014.
Yeah, okay. And have you seen it? I mean, I think it's in a really healthy place just now. Almost any night, certainly in this city and in other cities as well, you could go out and go and see some performance poetry.
Yeah, definitely. I think the one thing that's quite dangerous about spoken word and poetry is that there is there's no support for people. So like, whereas when you're in like theatre or music, there seems to be like, you know, you have management or producers, and like, you know, you have funding bodies, and you have like your own kind of space in Creative Scotland and all this kind of stuff. Whereas spoken word is very much like it's in a basement kind of art form, you know, and how you actually extend to the next level can be quite tricky, and also how you are mindful over, you know, because quite a lot of people are encouraged to be quite raw and you know, confessional and all this kind of stuff, and actually who is protecting these people that are standing at these mics, that, you know, and there's a lot of power for the bookers, and you know, all these kind of things, and I think that that's something that makes me nervous in a lot of ways, but also I think that that's something, what's great about open mics is that anyone can get up and do anything.
That's partly attractive, as you say, it could be in a pub or in a cellar somewhere, and that's, let's just do it right there. It's the most, I mean, you don't even need electricity. You don't need to, you can just go and do it. But that means that you can't, like something in theatre, you can workshop a show and then hopefully get support if it's good enough, or if it ticks the right boxes often in terms of funding to get it there, but that doesn't seem to be the case with spoken word. Yeah, I mean, it feels like you have to make a show to then be able to do anything, and then your show is technically theatre then. So do you know what I mean? It's like, I suppose that's right. I think Sonic Youth have done really well here actually. I think Sonic Youth have really, you know, and that's only because Jenny Lindsay, you know, set up Flint and Pinch and Rally and Broad and all that, and, you know, Noiriki as well. There are other good ones, and that's always like the next level. And I think they're always really great nights, but it's the kind of like level below that, you know, there's not much. It's like all the power is in with the bookers and the gatekeepers. Yeah, and you talked about poetry on the page. You've had a collection. Hopeless? Yeah, Hopeless. So Hopeless was the show that I made, and the book is like kind of like a documentation of the show rather than a poetry book. So it's got poems in it, but it kind of it's got stage directions and stuff in it as well. Whereas I've been working on a collection now, so which is really exciting. So I always wanted to do it, and it never felt easy. And now sitting down, I'm like, oh, I actually do have enough now to make a collection. And hopefully that'll be out in the next few years. Oh, brilliant. Yeah. Because I think in the last year or so, partly because of the rise of Stu Rhubarb as a press, but other presses as well, written poetry collections, there seem to be, I mean, they're not hugely popular, they're not bestsellers or anything, but they do seem to be popular at the moment. Yeah, I think for me it was something that I was always quite resistant to. Like, I always felt like I didn't, like, I'm quite dyslexic and I really struggled at school, and I always thought that, you know, it wasn't for me and I wouldn't understand it and all this kind of stuff, but when really I just realised I was reading the wrong genre. Like, like, it's, you know, poetry is like music, there's genres, and you just have to find the ones that you like and like totally go for it. And now, you know, I can't stop reading poetry. Well, that's what I say to people. They say, "Oh, no, I don't really like poetry." I say, "Well, you just haven't read what you like. One that you like." Because that's the saying, if you say, "I don't like film," or "I don't like music." I did meet someone that said they didn't like music, which I thought was a strange. I think a lot of people. I think that's just a way of being like, I'm really different, isn't it? So, in terms of, are you thinking of doing more theatre in the future? Or is it too early to say? I kind of fall out with things. So when I was doing Daddy Drag, I'd fallen out with poetry. I was like, I'm not doing it anymore. And then when I did Daddy Drag, I couldn't wait to get back to spoken word, and now I'm really into spoken word and I'm going back to it. So I kind of go in and out of everything. At the moment, I don't have any ideas for shows, but I have just been doing a lot of screenwriting. Nothing's been made yet, but I've been doing a lot of professional development, screenwriting and pitching and stuff, so that's been really fun. So I want to focus on that and hopefully doing a poetry book, and then Daddy Drag will do its last couple of shows. But I'm also working for the International Book Festival, so that's a big gig. And you're also involved in the education side of things, you do? So tell me about that, I'm interested. So it's the educational side is kind of like the bread and butter. It's like what I do to kind of keep myself, you know, working. But I don't see it as a side hustle. I kind of think that it informs all my other stuff anyway, and what I do informs that, and, you know, vice versa. But I work in different social contexts, so teaching theatre, teaching spoken word and stuff like that. So I work in schools, I've worked in prisons,
with adults, people with learning difficulties. And what's great about being creative is that anyone can do it, because there's no right or wrong answer. So,
but what's the experience if you go into a school or a prison where perhaps there's going to be initial resistance to any kind of performance? You know, I go right back to what we spoke about at the beginning, this idea of not letting any emotions out, you know, particularly men or young boys or whatever. What's the initial idea, or are people quite open to it?
I think people are just waiting to be asked.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
And I think it doesn't always work, but it mostly works.
Yeah.
And what I have as my secret weapon is that I can go in and do some poems, and I'll just do ones that really suit whatever room I'm walking into, and that always helps a wee bit. But of course you're always having resistance, but what's really important is building safe spaces and like positive relationships, and then people feel like they can open up. And that's why I find some artists that, you know, see it as a side hustle, that are going in for an hour, you know, they're not going to get the same outcomes because it's not that important to them. Whereas me, it's like it's really important for me for those people to leave feeling like a sense of self-worth, and that's not going to happen if I am not there actually building positive relationships where they feel like they can trust me to open up. And I've been doing it for a long time. I've been doing it longer than poetry. You know, I've been doing it for 8 or 9 years, and it's something that I think I get a lot of joy out of.
I think that idea of building relationships in these things is so important. Because if you go and ask someone to write or perform something that means a lot to them, that is, if they're doing it for the first time, that's incredibly raw. And then if the person goes, right, see you in a month, or you know, or I'll do someone else next week. I think people overlook that sometimes. That there should be that kind of.
I think that's the thing when you know people book you to come in for an hour, whereas, you know, these projects that I do, I try and have at least 6 weeks, 6 sessions, and then that's the way that you can open them up, because it's not safe to open up people within an hour. It's actually not. You don't have an exit strategy, and you don't know what's living in that room. So it's about like having fun and then slowly building up to it, and actually being like, you don't have to open up. That's your choice. Like if you want to write about Celtic, or you want to write about like that's you have to give them the ownership and the choice about what they write about, because you don't want them to be digging down deep, because you're not a therapist, you're not got that skill. So if that comes out, that's great, but actually you have to be really aware of that. You know, if you're the first person that's asked them, dig deep, write about, you know, you need to give them little prompts that means that they can find ownership and like power through it, rather than, you know, being exploited for their stories.
So, as you said at the beginning, Daddy Drag, Tron Theatre, 26th to 29th. You done it in front of a Glasgow?
No, I haven't, so I'm really excited about doing that.
Excellent, I can't wait to see it myself. Well, Leyla, thanks for talking to us
today. No, thank you so much.
And we'll be back soon with someone completely different. Cheers.